This is Empowered Human Academy. Welcome home.
I think confidence in knowing that for the things I can't control, that it's fine because we'll always figure something out. So that piece of like, I know there's light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know what the tunnel looks like. I don't know what it's, is it gross or by the end, there's, somewhere we'll get there.
This is about love. This is about light. This is about the idea that you have everything you will ever need.
And this life of yours, this is where you grow, you expand, and you remember who you really are.
I'm Abe.
I'm Isaac.
In Empowered Human Academy, we join with humans of all kinds to feel the inspiration that can only come with empowered living.
The stories you hear today are unique, but the energy you hear today belongs to you too. So, with hearts wide open, let's begin.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Empowered Human Academy. Today we are joined by the brilliant, the magnificent, the beautiful Yumin Wong. Hello, how are you doing today? What is up?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I've known you you and I worked together forever ago and then didn't talk for a bunch of years. Then I found out that you were still amazing. So I'm happy that you're here today.
I'm excited to talk with you. I know, I think it's been almost a decade. I mean, not to give away numbers, but yeah, it's been wild. Yeah.
Around that, yeah. So we begin this episode, the way we do with all these conversations, with the question of identity. Not necessarily the way you introduce yourself, like at a business function, or not necessarily who you are with family. Maybe not there could be overlap in a bunch of areas, but when you're not doing anything for anyone, when you're just alone and feeling really good, when you're feeling at home with yourself, what words of identity feel like they fit?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think confidence, care. I just think about family and friends and how genuine, I think is another word that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. These are really warm and strong words. I'm excited to learn more. Can you tell me, just let's start from the beginning. Tell me about confidence. What does that mean to you? And what does that mean to you today?
Yeah, I think it stems a little bit from childhood in the past when I think I found myself when I was confident in certain things. I found myself gaining traction and starting to get motivated to complete a task, for example. But also realizing that on the other side, whenever I felt I just don't believe in myself, I just it was a downward spiral and it was just not healthy. And I think through just life in general, seeing that there's a pattern emerging when I get confident about something or when I have experience in something, that's when I gain confidence and feel that, okay, I've learned about this. I've, gone through the mistakes. I know better now. And then from there, it's it opens up so many doors. And I think, having that in mind is just the world is your oyster at that point. And I also, I think, looking back, I always got some feedback from my closest friends and family that, you're the biggest thing that was, prohibiting me from advancing in life or career wise was just myself. I was just always, in my own way. And so I think navigating through that and overcoming that was the biggest thing for me. And it just switched a lot of things on. So I think that's why.
Amazing. I'm intrigued because I feel like most people that I talk to, when confidence comes up, they don't think about it as something that they have any control over. One either just happens to be confident or one happens to not be confident. And what I'm hearing from you is that in looking back at the patterns, you're seeing, okay, when I'm confident, good things. When I'm less confident, downward spiral. How did you come to a place where confidence was something that you felt like you could control? Or maybe you always felt that way. Maybe some people just are that way and aren't. But how do you think about that?
Not. I haven't always felt this way. I think it has to do with back in the day when, especially in school, I was born and raised in Singapore, and in school, I found that, a lot of times you aren't supposed to question the teacher. You're supposed to take whatever they say as oh, that's just how the way things are. I think the turning point for me was coming to the States for college and then seeing my peers asking all these critical questions and realizing that, oh, these are things that we can actually question. And these are things where, we don't have to take whatever like the professor or teacher is saying is like the facts. You have to understand why they've come to be, and realizing that I struggled so much with like raising my hand just to ask a question. But seeing my peers around me, seeing the confidence that they exuded was like inspiration for me. And I was like, I should just give it a shot. Like they can do it. Why not me? Right. And so I think it's definitely a journey. It's not something that like turned on or off for me. It's like just learning through my surroundings. I think that's the other thing, is just staying curious about life. There's a saying in Mandarin that says, 活到老,学到老. You learn as long as you live. So, whenever you're able to, like, it's all about learning. And it's there's just so much knowledge out there that people are able to share. And it's just, I think now that we're more connected, it's easier to access those resources.
Totally.
All that to say that it's been a journey. And I think it's something that, through seeing the lens of like others, learning from them, expanding my horizons just by being in the presence of like a diverse group of people, I think has really helped in, gaining that confidence and knowing that, that we can get through things by experiencing them, learning from mistakes, and just growing into it, just embracing changes and embracing like, sometimes when we have failures, that's fine. It's always something that is a learning opportunity.
Yeah. Wow. Tell me about I'm curious about curiosity. That was something that you mentioned as being important. You're talking about like seeing people ask critical questions and then starting to ask that yourself. When you were back in Singapore, or at least before that period in college here in the States, did you have questions that you felt like you couldn't ask? Like, were you always curious under the surface with less expression, or how have you and curiosity gotten on over the years?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think maybe it's like, my upbringing or just like the surroundings. We never really questioned the teacher. So it's just like, it was just as given, like, okay, just take it as like very rote learning kind of way. I was curious about certain things, but I guess I just wasn't confident enough to ask about them. I was afraid of the backlash. I was afraid of like, am I going to look like, someone's silly asking this question? Like, did everybody else around me know this? Because nobody else was, really raising our hands, or at least from my memory, I could be totally off about this. It's been like a really long time. But that was the impression that I have, like the difference between the time then and the difference between the time now and what I've learned through adulthood. So yeah, I think, it's a really good question. Yeah.
What I want to explore again, this topic of confidence, because I feel like even with my upbringing growing up, if you were confident, then you were cocky, or don't be too confident, because who are you to be confident? So I'm curious, like, what your journey was like coming, to the States for college. And then since then, honestly, in your journey with confidence, like, what does it feel like, in your role in your company, as a mom, as a woman in the US, as a person, as, all the different components that you kind of live in. What does it feel like to kind of practice that confidence in your body, in your mind, in your soul?
I think for me, it's paying it forward. Because I think the reason why I gained confidence is having the support network. And knowing that, okay, if I explore this option 1, option 2, that there'll be someone there, next to me, either guiding me, or like if I failed, to fall back on. And that could be like my husband, or, now Ari is a little young, he's 2 years old, but I can always look to him and like provide that smile and just know everything is okay at the end of the day. Also, like, at work, I had mentors that, kind of gave me opportunities and like provided me the guidance that, hey, this is worth trying out. It's not like the repercussions are not irreversible. So give it a shot, and then we'll see how it goes from there. And then so for me now, it's like, how do I pay that forward in my current role as an engineer, a peer, a wife, as a mom? Because I think like playing a role model is important to show that, hey, I'm an Asian woman engineer. I was able to, progress in my career by doing it this way. This is one way you could do it. we could try it together, or we could do it, in a different style that's, more of your own. But let's talk about it together. Like, let me coach you through this if you want, or let me sponsor you if I have the, political capital. So yeah, I think it really is for me just spreading that. Like, I know I could do it. I know you could do it. So like, either I do, you do, we do kind of mentality. And I learned a lot of this from like my current director and manager. She like has been so amazing, just providing me so much guidance and, opportunities. And so like just learning about that and then paying that forward has been,
I'm hearing a direct connection to the like confidence, care, genuine. I'm hearing a direct connection to the care side of this. And many of the examples that you just listed off have to do with the workplace. And, there are all kinds of workplaces. Some are more caring than others. It sounds like there's a lot of care in your professional life. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. I feel really privileged because I know it's not a very common experience. But I do feel like a lot of, at least like, my managers throughout my career have always been very like, they cared a lot of my career path, cared a lot about me as a person, whether I was happy, making sure I wasn't burning out, making sure they had, regular check-ins with me. And on my side, like, I always make sure that we had this like trust as well, like, trust that I'll do my job, perform, also have their backs. I think it's a really important thing to have a good relationship with your manager, as well as your peers, your team, your basically anyone you work with day to day. Because like, let's be real, like it's at least 8 hours of your day. It's like a third of your life.
So much time.
Yeah, so much time. And you really want to make sure that these relationships are well established, because it's hard to come into a workplace when there's tension or conflict. And, you want to get ahead of those things before they drive you, either inside you're just like feeling bad about it, or externally, like you're stressing out. It's affecting your emotional and physical well-being. So I think, with I've been very lucky in a sense that I've had really good managers who care. And I think that's why like it's an infectious thing where you want to care about your teammates too. You want to care about your peers. You want to care about your mentees, whoever like you affect in life. I think like I've learned that from the people who have affected me. And I think that's, the only way to pay it forward is, making sure that I take care of those around me as much as I can.
That makes sense. I'm not intending to go through this list of words, but we arrive here at genuine. Like I'm hearing that here also. And I don't mean to get stuck on the fact that like we're talking about work here, but it is striking to me that in a larger society where the workplace is kind of known to be a less caring, less genuine spot, like people have their work face, people have their other face. It's really refreshing and wonderful to hear a story that's a lot brighter than that. Like, did you... I don't know what question I have to ask about this. I'm really pleased that we have like a genuine story of care and confidence in the workplace. And that's beautiful.
Well, and I think what's really kind of coming to my mind is my curiosity is taking me to this place of like, how does human show up in work and in life? Like you were talking about authenticity. And I think sometimes when you're in a workplace or it's sometimes interesting because you have to play politics sometimes, and there's like different interpersonal dynamics. And what goes on through your mind when you're trying to be authentic and you kind of, when you're trying to be authentic at work, what does that look like for you?
Oh, that's a really good question. It's actually something that we've discussed with my coworkers too. And I'll be honest, like I'm not 100% me. Like the human at home is not the same as the human at work. Like, I definitely have raised my voice at home, get frustrated at home, but I don't ever show that at work or take it out on my coworkers the same as I would. Sorry, Josh, my husband, but and sometimes with Ari, like especially when I was a new mom, like I couldn't. There's so many things that I had to navigate, and I was so stressed out. But I don't show that side that much at work. Like I think part of it is just like compartmentalizing that. So
yeah, totally.
It's hard because like I feel like I'm authentic at work. Like I feel like the side that I show is like me. It's just that I don't reveal like the other pieces. So I think I'm giving a piece of the pie. Like you think of it as like, key lime pie or whole piece. I'm probably giving like maybe 25% of me, but that me is
Sure.
still me.
Totally. And I think it's not just you. I mean, it's most people. And I'm always curious about like, okay, cause you're right. We spend 8 hours a day with these people. We spend most of our lives with our coworkers. And it's like, I'm just always curious about like bringing our humanity to work. And I think that we're seeing that with, you know, society's need to be healthy more than ever, and mentally and physically and emotionally. So, so I guess like I kind of want to explore what it means to you to kind of in your own journey. What has health looked like for you, both personally and professionally, and have those two like intermixed? Has one kind of like outweighed at one point or the other? And like, what does your balance look like right now as, you know, a really high performer in your company? And then you have all these other personal life things going on, which are super exciting. What does your health look like?
Yeah. I say because right now I'm like, you know, preparing for maternity leave in about 3 weeks. So the health piece like looks like I need to take care of my body, take care of the baby inside of me. And so that means like slowing down at work. That means handing things off and realizing that I only have a limited amount of time. And so time management becomes very key, or it has been very key ever since like I had Ari, but even more so now. And then also checking in with like my peers and like knowing that, hey, I'm handing this off to someone else who will be here. I won't be here, but this is, I want to make sure that they're set up for success. And so making sure that the handoff issues are well, you know, written out, that I have a good sync with them before I leave. So work-wise, I'm winding down, I'm slowing down. Personal side, like, you know, taking care of my health, making sure that I work out still. I have my Peloton bike right next to me, and that's the thing that's been keeping me going. I try to work out every other day, and you know, I know like once baby comes, it's gonna be again like, you know, you're gonna have to use a lot more strength. You're gonna carry baby around, all of that stuff. And so it's really about focusing on that physical health and making sure that I'll be strong enough to handle all of that. And then the other side of it is also the mental kind of preparation. I think having at least one like Ari was, you know, a good experience already, but I don't know what the dynamic is going to look like with a toddler and a baby at home. And so it's like prepping for that could be reading books, could be, I've also like reached out to other moms who've had multiples, or, you know, parents who've had multiples, and just, what's it like when, you know, you had the second one came along, like how did the other sibling respond? And so being more conscious about the questions that might come up or the experiences that might come up. I know that I won't be able to control a lot of things, like, you know, birth is complicated. But for the things I can control, i.e. preparing for it, is something that I invest a lot more time into like these days. Does that answer the question? I'm not sure. It's like a really complex question, actually.
No, there's so many different dynamics. That's all true.
Especially now with like a chapter of your life rotating into place with the arrival of baby. So I use the word control, and I'm curious about that because I heard something similar when you were talking about confidence. Like I know that if I do this, this happens. If I do that, that happens. You mentioned just now that there's things that you know you can control, things that you know that you can't. How do you navigate large shifts into unknown situations? I guess just in general, you sound like you have a very peaceful relationship between what you can and what you can't control. And I want to know if that is the case, and just generally how you approach entering a brand new situation. Know that there are things that you can do and the things that you can't.
And in the past, I used to struggle with that a lot. Like I used to worry. I'm a worrier. You can ask my mom, you can ask my family. I'm a straight up worrier and a planner at the same time. So it's like, I worry about the things that are out of my control because I don't know what it looks like. And the confidence that I get is only on things that I have control over and I've experienced. However, I think ever since, you know, the birth of Ari, like I went through like this in I think it was 24 hours of just straight up smooth experience. And then like it just got complicated real fast and we had to opt for an emergency C-section. And so like, you know, those are things that are out of my control. We come in with the birth plan, you know, like, okay, this is going the way it's the, you know, stories I've heard, like the success stories. But ever since that experience and knowing that there are so many things that are just like our bodies are just different, and it's not like science. It's not like a piece of software.
Yeah.
It's like 0 or 1, right? Even then, sometimes like there are bugs that we don't understand. But that aside, I think I've started to gain more peace around like knowing that there are things out of my control, and why not spend the energy and focus my time on things that I can control.
Sure.
And so I've kind of let go of all those other things that I know that are beyond, I don't know, like comprehension sometimes.
Sure.
And I'm actually glad that my husband's more of the one that can deal with the curveballs, because curveballs are just not my thing, honestly.
Sure.
And so I just focus my time more on the planning side, and try not to think too much about stuff I can control. And then if it comes, it comes. Yeah. And I think it's like over time, it's just become more zen about that. Like it's just inevitable. Sometimes things just, life throws you curveballs. And I mean, look at all of us with the pandemic going on, So I think there are some things that's just, we got to like adapt, embrace the change, and just go along with it, figure it out as you go along. And, what is it, like cross the bridge when it comes kind of mentality?
Yeah,
I think has been what I'm gearing towards these days.
Is it fair to call is it fair to call this a kind of confidence, the way that you look at the things you can't control? Like I'm hearing confidence as connected to control, but is it fair to say that you have found like what you're describing is confidence in the things that you cannot control? Is that right?
Yeah, I think confidence in knowing that for the things I can't control, that it's fine, because we'll always figure something out. So that piece of like, I know there's light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know what the tunnel looks like. I don't know what it's, is it gross or, but at the end, there's, somewhere we'll get there. I think about this a lot, even like, we traveled to Iceland about 2 months ago, and, it was like the first time Ari had traveled in a really long time. And the last time we did travel was when he was 3.5 months. He's just like, a baby, and you can just put it in the cot and he sleeps like the entire flight, right? But as a toddler, like everything outside the window it's like, he's just curious about everything. He's like, oh my God, an airplane. Like I'm actually on an airplane. I've seen this on the TV. Like I've seen it in the sky, but it's totally different to be on one. And on the way there, 7-hour flight, he did not sleep. We had, we booked a red-eye flight from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. Chicago time, thinking that, it's his bedtime, he's going to fall asleep. Did not fall asleep at all to the last 6 minutes. And within that, he didn't feel well halfway, and just puked all over. It's like, okay. So the thing I can control is that I packed an extra outfit, because that's what you do. You always pack an extra outfit when you have a baby, a toddler. And that worked out. We changed him. But even after landing, we spent 2.5 hours at the Iceland airport, getting all of our vaccinations checked and our records checked, and then even waiting for the car rental. And when we reached the car rental place, the car seats that they gave us were not compatible. And again, Ari was not feeling well with the car seat, and it's just another episode of him just puking. And it's like all the things that could go wrong just went wrong on the first day. But at the end of the day, me and my husband were like, he's fine. We're all safe. We're all safe and sound. Let's just get through this the way we know how. Okay, let's find a laundromat, because we have all these clothes that need to get cleaned. Let's make sure that we buy a car seat, because we don't trust the one that was given by the company. And so I think we just okay, given our situation now, what are some things that we can do to alleviate the situation, to solve these problems? And so I'm really grateful for just having Josh be the pillar, because I'm at that point I was going to break down already, but knowing that he's there and we can solve these issues as partners, and knowing that Ari is safe, at the big picture sense, we're good, we're fine. So just taking a big picture point of view was also very helpful.
Totally. Have you always been flexible like that, or did it come with? Has it just been since you became a mom?
I think since I met Josh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me a bit about that.
Yeah. So Josh and I are very similar, but also very different. And I think like we complement each other a lot. We actually met on a plane. And I think, just like for me as a planner, like that doesn't happen. Like, how do you meet someone on a plane? How do you explain it to your mom? Like, all those things. And I think, we, while we're dating and, approaching things in life, we took a trip together. I think our first one was like to Europe. And like, you really you find out a lot about a person when you travel with them, right? 24/7. And I realized like, oh, for me, like having an itinerary going in is very important. But for him, it's like, let's enjoy like the moment, the present, right? So it's like my itinerary comes in, but if some items on the itinerary don't work out, he always has an activity that we could like fall back on. So he's like he showed me a side where like you don't always have to do A, B, C, D. Sometimes it's fine to just deviate a little bit and then come back. And I think we do that a lot with like other things in our lives, like, with buying a house, with like parenting. And so it's been really great to like just let go of some things. I used to be super uptight, like, oh no, if it's not A, B, C, D, then I like lose my mind. But then now I'm able to, okay, that's fine. Let's just, figure it out from here. So definitely a change.
So you're a planner, and I resonate with that a lot. Isaac has made me a lot more flexy, which is great.
I love that.
But I'm wondering, what is your relationship to your own like dreaming and your own wonder and your own like curiosity with like things outside of the planner, things outside of like the box that we put ourselves in sometimes?
I once thought about, when I retire, to open up a cafe where folks can like, and this cafe would be in the middle of nowhere and in the mountains where there's like lots of sheep, so I can just like get their yarn, make yarn out of their fur, and so people can like start knitting and crafting while I have a cafe where like, I just appreciate latte art. I could never, I mean, I shouldn't say I could never do it, but I'm not at this stage right now where I could do beautiful latte art. I could take a course probably, and just seeing people like happy creating things and providing that atmosphere where they can come together and know each other. So that's like kind of like one day that could be something that I've been dreaming about quite a lot actually. But I think just societal pressure sometimes is like, and also having kids, it's like, okay, they come first, and how do I make sure that we provide a life for them where they can thrive in? And so that kind of dreaming is like, now and then I'll dream about it, but reality, snaps me back at times.
Are there any like kind of day-to-day dreaming that aren't like these big kind of lofty far in the future dreams, or are you more of like a let's just get through the day, kind of the day that we planned out and stuff like that?
Sometimes I think with the pandemic, this has been even more so, but like sometimes I'd like to find small wins in my day. And that could be like, oh, how do I make this Thai iced tea or something? Like, I usually would get it at a restaurant, or leave it to the experts, right? Or how do I, come up with some sensory play bin for my son? Like, after working, I would like to just like spend some time with him. And sometimes we do something as simple as like putting a bunch of oats in a bowl, and we just pretend like we like transfer them from bowl to bowl. And it's like, for him, it's great. And for me, it's like time with him. So in that sense, like, I think just finding the small like joys, maybe not small things, but small joys in each day, I think has helped a lot. For a little bit further than that, it's just, I guess, thinking about our future, like my son and like with my baby, like our future as a family, our growing family. And what does that mean? Like, I would love to spend more time with my family who's back in Singapore. And so thinking about those things too, like our plans for the future and how do we get closer to them physically, and what does that mean for their school, for their getting more exposed to the culture, like Singaporean culture versus like, being in the States. I would love for them to like know both sides and where they come from, and to embrace like both of the different cultures. And I think that's like kind of more on the like not really day to day, but more of a achievable thing in the near term future.
Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
For sure. We've been talking a lot kind of about learning, and we haven't called it that so far, but from learning confidence in college and learning flexibility from Josh, you even talked about like maybe learning latte art. What's your relationship to learning? Like why do you care about it, it seems?
Yeah, I think the reason why is because I am very, very afraid of stagnation. I'm very afraid of being on a plateau. I like to be on the move. I like to, learn about new things. And, sometimes I probably say I don't have time to do it, but it's like an excuse for myself. But I know I can put some time aside for it. And actually this year I've been more conscious about that. So at work, we have this study group that I am leading. It's very organic. Like we were, okay, we want to take this workshop together. It would be great if we could go through these labs together. And so I've been committed to make sure that every 2 weeks we meet up and I make sure I always attend the sessions. I think in the past I would have been like, probably after the first 2 sessions, I'd probably like flake out. But now I'm like committed to do that because like, this is the time in my day where I can actually commit to learning something new with my coworkers. Because for me, with kids too, it's like at 9 I start because the nanny comes. 5 I have to stop because the nanny leaves. So it's like a very set schedule. So within that time, how do I maximize my time with my coworkers? How do I maximize my time in learning? Given the opportunity, like we have a learning and development credit, like I need to make full use of that.
Cool.
And so what was the question again?
Just generally your relationship to learning. I guess specifically it was like why is that important? Why are you like why invest in your curiosity, even if that plays into it?
Yeah, and the other piece too, like definitely the curious side. Like there's so many things where I'm just in awe when I see other people like they've reached this like level of their learning in a certain like course, for example, right? Like for example, latte art. Like how did they get there? They had to start from somewhere, right? And I think I find it really interesting seeing the different ways people learn as well. And through this study group, it's also been great to see like how we feed off each other's ideas, how we like take our different takeaways from the same session, and we're able to share that. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't notice that XYZ that someone else had noticed, but now that you say it, that makes a lot more sense. So I think part of it is I enjoy like learning on my own for certain types of things, but I enjoy like learning with other people for certain types of courses as well. So it's like, I don't know. I think it's great to just learn and gain new knowledge while you can. Again, it goes back to like the whole thing of like learning as long as you live, because you have the opportunity to do it, right? And I think the thing that makes me scared about stagnation is just that what if the world moves so forward and I'm left behind? It's like, there's all these new platforms too, like TikTok. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm a consumer of that. I don't know how to make TikTok videos, but even that's just like a very simple example of like how things have evolved, right? With technology. Used to be that Facebook was like the new hotness, but now it's like all these different mediums where people consume content, people produce content. And, if that space of social media can change, there's so many other spaces in our world that can change as well. And even like with the, all the medical advances as well. Like I'm just thinking about, the whole like pregnancy journey and comparing and talking to my mom about her pregnancy journey 30 years ago and how that's been so different for her versus me. And it's just fascinating.
How has that been different?
Oh my gosh. Even just the ultrasound resolution, like she gave me the ultrasound of me when she had me like 30 plus years ago. I'm not gonna say the exact age, but I compared that to like Ari's, and I was like, this is like a blob, like totally. I was a blob compared to now with, you can see the shape of the fetus and stuff. And it's kind of wild to imagine that 30 years that this made that much of a difference. And even like, I think the resources that are at my fingertips versus the resources that back in the day for her would have been really difficult to get to. She probably had to like, talk to people, network. And, it was not like I could just Google it. right? Back in the day. So now it's like you have Instagram and you have, all these other moms on different networks that have resources out there to teach you and guide you through it. So those were not there for her back in the day. And I think
did she ever talk about not being as, with all the resources on Facebook and the books and anything you can Google at the tip of your fingertips, was she scared? Because I feel like some people who I know who are parents are like, they're excited, they're really nervous, even though they have so much information. I wonder with what your mom's, if she ever talked to you about, like, was she kind of nervous that she didn't have as much information as you probably do? You know what I mean?
I don't know if she used the word nervous per se, but she did say that she's like, y'all are considered very lucky now that you have this knowledge at your fingertips. And, I think it's funny because she is like amazed with all this sensory play things. She's like, we never used to do that. I mean, for her, it wasn't called sensory play. For her, it's just probably like going to the park, letting my daughters run around, excuse me, run around in the park and like roll around the grass. But we have a term for it now. And so like, maybe there were things that she did that she didn't know are things that we do now and have a word for it. So I don't know. I don't think she was too nervous because she could rely on her mom, who could rely on her mom, or like just the family in general, like, all
community.
Those the community bringing. But I feel like things have changed in the sense that, I mean, Josh and I are here without family. Our families can visit and stuff, but it's not the same as like just walk down to the next house over and like, hey mom, can you help me with this? Right. It's more like a video call, phone call away. And so I think it's a very different kind of setup as well. Whereas I think for her time, it's like, my grandma was like, about 5-minute drive away from her. So she could like come and help. So I think there's like a change in like dynamics as well that we have to take into account when we're where like these resources really do come in a lot more handier because we need it.
I was talking to my aunt a couple of years ago and she's like, yeah, we just had each other. We would call each other to see what we were up to and new things that we would be learning. But it was very much like a community focused thing, which I'm so fascinated by. This is making me think like, what is progress? What does progress mean to you? What do you think it's about?
Yeah, I think, wow. I think it's the ability to look back and know that you've learned, that you have more things in your pocket and more like resources in your pocket now that you can leverage that you didn't before. So it could be like back in the day, this was back in college when I learned about using hardware and like, the circular saw and like things to build a booth, like, using 2x4s and all these like things that I wouldn't have dreamed about doing had I not like, been put in a situation like that. And then from there, looking back, okay, I learned about how to use these tools and that I now can leverage as, if I wanted to. I helped my husband build the planter outside and like, back when we were like taking care of the backyard and like doing some gardening and stuff. Or even like now, if I wanted to build something for Ari, I would have more knowledge going in than I did if I hadn't gone through that experience. So progress for me really is about like, having the tools now that you didn't have before, having the resources that you can tap into and leverage that you didn't have before.
I'm curious what it was like in your journey of progress post coming to the US. What did that look like for you? That's a big question, but like, I'm curious, like how you've changed, what's your journey with your own progress and your own growth?
Yeah. And I also have to thank my mom and dad a lot for this because like they were the ones who really pushed me to explore, leaving the country and pursuing an education overseas. And had it not been for that, I don't think it would have opened that whole like curiosity and confidence chapter of my life where like, seeing that other people were asking questions. I'm like, oh gosh, like it really just, it's like it, I don't know. It somehow it went from like 0 to 100 really fast for me. Like the fact that I am here in a different country, given this opportunity to learn, being surrounded by folks with different backgrounds, different cultures, and different viewpoints.
Yeah.
And so it just like expanded my network from like, okay, growing up in Singapore, which is a really small country, a little tiny red dot on the map, and learning about things in a very like small, like a smaller environment. But when you leave a country that you've known for like 20 years of your life and go into somewhere completely new and different, like you hear about things on the news, you hear, I watched American TV shows, but that was just like a glimpse of it. Actually being immersed in that environment and like, in knowing or like getting to know folks in real life has been a very different experience. And I think that like was a catalyst almost to my like progress for me. Yeah, I feel like I mean I don't know what life would have been like if I had just stayed in Singapore. I don't know. We probably won't never know. Maybe in a parallel universe.
Yeah.
But I know now that I feel like progress was possible, very possible by being here, and I know that I was curious about their progress. I know that I was confident in making progress because, I'm like here in the States, and, I feel very lucky because like, it's not something that, everybody can get to. And I think because of that, like the way that I can make a full use of this opportunity is to be able to like pay it forward and be there, be present and genuine with my connections here. I think it like all ties back to that one crucial turning point where like my mom was like, it's okay, you'll go overseas, you'll come back at some point. I think she was expecting me to come back like after I graduated, and I was like, all these years later.
Also, the last few years.
Yeah, but it's been great. Like, just keeping that connections with all my friends and family back in Singapore. And, every time I go back, we like share all these like experiences and accounts. And it's just been great to see that the world is actually like more and more connected, right? Like back in the day, like I was thinking of, my mom was telling me when she went to the States for college, or not college, but I think she did like a master's program or something. I can't remember, but she used to have to write letters back to her mom. Like it wasn't like, right. And it's not like email or texting or voice video calls. Like that was out of the question. And so I realized that, again, with like progress and technological advances, now we live in a world where it's possible to connect people around and like bring some of this knowledge that I've learned or like progress that I've made back home. And I think that's also part of like why we're thinking of moving back at sometime next year. And I would really love to see how I can apply the things I've learned in the tech scene here and bring it back to Singapore and see like how does that work out? How is it gonna, I mean, it's a very different culture, but what can I bring back from here that I can apply there and help with making the tech scene a little bit more, make more progress. Yeah.
That leads directly into a thing that I had written down to ask you about. Like you've learned so much over here, as you say, it is a totally different culture. You've evolved a bunch as a person over the last however many number of years. What are you feeling now, looking ahead to going back to the country where you began, carrying like all that's true about you now, and looking ahead to what that might look like as you re-enter that culture, even though like that culture has evolved too over the last few years, right? So how do you think about all that right now?
I have a lot of feelings about it. Like I don't even know where to begin, but I think the biggest one is probably excitement. And I think the biggest motivator is just like family, right? Like with our growing family and haven't really seen my parents in a while, and my sister just had a baby too, like 4 or 5 months ago, and knowing that Ari can grow up with Luna and like have play dates with her and with my second child too. So I think a lot of it is excitement, but also part of it is just what if it's the wrong move for my career? What if it's the wrong move? I don't know. Like maybe I know that in certain things we'll probably have to like in terms of space, for example, we'll have to downsize, right? We'll have to like get an apartment versus currently where we're at right now. And because housing is very expensive there, land is scarce. So like that's one aspect where I'm like, oh no, I'm not sure if we're able to adapt to that, quite
Sure.
well. And there might be other things as well, like culturally, because I think visiting Singapore is one thing. Like Josh has visited 6-7 times already, but
Yeah.
living there is another thing, and like getting immersed into the culture as well. But
Totally.
I think that's the part where like the planning and the flexi piece
For
comes
sure.
into play, where we can plan all these things and try to predict what's going to happen, but we got to be flexy about it.
For sure.
Love it.
And does that, so I'm curious about like what a wrong move, like is a wrong move a thing? Like given what you said earlier in this conversation
Yeah.
about like things will work out somehow,
Yeah.
what does a wrong move mean to you even?
Yeah, maybe probably not the right choice of, best choice of words there.
Just curious.
I think it's just, would it be a move where we might regret the move?
Sure.
I think that would be like how we categorize it as a wrong move. But yeah, like, at the end of the day, it's something that is reversible, I think.
Sure.
I mean, depending, right? Like if Ari gets too used to the environment, maybe it's a lot harder to go back to the States. But
Totally.
I think, that's something that we can explore as we go along.
Totally.
Yeah.
And as you're thinking about going back, who is Yumin as you go back to Singapore next year, who you weren't 10 years ago or however long ago when you left?
Yeah.
Like who are you today that you are bringing to Singapore?
Yeah. I think a person who is more curious about the world around her, a person who is not afraid to question things when they don't make sense, a person who is able to help, figure out whether or not I'm thinking of like the work side of things now. Like
Sure.
a team is not, communicating well or being honest and transparent. Like I think that those are values that I've seen in the workplace for me, like honesty and transparency, at least in my immediate team, that I would like to see in Singapore. I mean, I have no clue what it's like. I haven't worked there I think I did an internship there a really long time ago. And even then that was like in a totally different industry. So I have no clue what it's like, the work culture there is in the tech industry, but I'd be curious to, knowing what I've learned here, if there are any differences, why those differences exist. Do those differences make sense? Is there something that we can change to make, the workplace better and more enjoyable for, folks there? I don't know. I think that's why it's exciting, because it's like a thing that I just don't have an answer to, but I'm curious to find out. So
I hear the way that you've talked throughout this whole conversation about learning, I suppose, and being curious about things, and
Confidence.
The way that I hear you like stepping back and saying, okay, but actually, what do we do with this then, and how can we learn about it? And the joy that clearly that sort of thing brings you. I want to ask one more time about progress. I want to bring that in play back to the table. Is progress for you, or learning, or the engagement of curiosity, whatever word we're using here, is that its own reward, or is there another reason why that's important? Like, what's the why here? Because we can keep learning, we can keep asking, but what's your why? Why is that important to you?
I think, at least in the recent years, it's because of Ari and because of
Sure.
and like I think, I don't know, I feel like knowledge is, it's so cliche to say it, but knowledge is power.
Yeah.
And I feel like my parents gave a lot of that to us when growing up. They provided a lot of like guidance, and that helped us realize, and helped us, like, for my mom and my dad to be okay with me just going overseas. I mean, like, I'm flying out of the nest literally, right? And just being away from them for a lot of, like, I think for some parents that might be really like scary and worrisome. But the fact that they knew about, like, my mom, for example, knew about like the courses in the US, like the engineering courses. She's like, it's worth a shot. Like, just try it out, and then if you don't like it, then we can, figure it out from there. She didn't say then you can come home, but it's like we can figure it out from there, and thankfully it worked out.
Yeah.
But I think, had she not known that this was a thing, or like know more about the US than she did, I don't think this opportunity would have been there for me. And so for me, it's like thinking back to like the generations to come, like equipped with what I know, or like equipped with what I will know, is there a better, more informed decision I can make or can help with like the future generations to come. And it starts so small, like, within your immediate family, but like, who knows what effect that could have, like, you passing that on, them passing it on to their friends. So like, it's just a network effect. And I think, some things does start small, and the ripple effect is what like fascinates me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so excited over here. The phrase, equipped with what I will know, that's super exciting. Like betting on the fact that we're going to keep learning as long as we live.
Yeah.
I'm hearing a history of boldness. It sounds like the bravery that your parents, that your mom showed.
Oh my God, my mom. Yeah. She's a brave, bold, audacious, courageous woman.
I mean, it seems to run in the family, and the fact that you're thinking about like equipping the next generations and the network effects from there, like that's super exciting.
I'm
Before
so glad
we
to hear that. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I want to know a little bit about your mom.
You should invite her for another podcast,
right?
Oh, honestly, please.
So tell me some things that you've learned from her. Give us an example of her bold, vivacious, description that you're talking about.
So my mom, she's retired now, but she used to be an associate professor at a university in electrical and computer engineering.
Cool. Wow.
And,
Cool.
I think I would say back in the day, like, decades ago, like in that space, it's like, it was tough for a woman to get an education beyond, like, I don't know, elementary school. But we call it primary school, but I think it's the equivalent of elementary school here.
Yeah.
And for her to, get to a stage where she has a college degree, I think, it just spoke leaps and bounds to like there's no limitations, as long as you are given circumstances and opportunities, you take it and you go with it. And I think part of it is like tying it back to my mom's mom, who doesn't speak a word of English, only spoke Hainanese, which is like a Chinese dialect, but she knew the importance of education. Wow. And so she knew, like, y'all better make sure you focus on education. That's the most important thing. Like, I'll do my best to be able to provide that to you. But it also meant like my mom and her sisters, and her brother, like, kind of navigating that space too, because they had to learn English, and they couldn't look to their mom to or my grandma, like, didn't know English, and so it's really on them to like embrace the opportunity education that they had. And seeing that my mom could achieve this back then when opportunities were scarce, especially for women, like what excuse do I have? I know we have a long way to go with, like, the inequality that we have here. But I cannot waste this opportunity, because I've seen her go through it. It's now given to me. I have to make full use of it. And so I think it just comes to like knowing what was hard, what came by, like, that was tough for them. And like, now it's like, I don't want to take that for granted, even though I could easily take it for granted. But
totally. And it kind of reminds me of all the things you're talking about, the pay it forward and learning, and kind of this power in learning, because your mom received power from your grandma, you received power from your mom. And it sounds like you want to not only do it for the people at work, but you want to do it for your kids. You want to do it for, the next generation of entrepreneurs or leaders or, engineers. But I think that's really inspiring.
Yeah. I thank you so much for having me on this call. Like, I think y'all asked these questions that, like, I actually didn't really tie these themes together until now. It's also made me really inspired to, like, yes, this is something I have to make sure and like have a conscious effort and focus on, because that's important to me.
Well, and it comes out so naturally in you, like like confidence, care, genuine family, friends. Those are the words that you talked about in the beginning, and those all tied to your story, especially throughout our conversation with your parents and with your family. And it's just really exciting to see you fucking crushing it. I love it.
I'm straight up crying over here. Like because the lineage, the history, the mothers in your family onto you and the kids that you have, and the people that you're connected to and the way that you're equipping them and what you've talked about in the workplace, like all of it.
Well, and I know life can be sometimes really unfortunate for some families, and it's not all like that. So I want to honor that that's not always the case.
Yes.
That your experience or our experience isn't always the case for families around the world. But also at the same time, I think that sometimes in an individualistic culture like the US, I think we take for granted the things that the people who came before us have done for us. I'm so grateful for my grandparents, for my dad, for my mom, all the things that they sacrificed for me that I, again, want to pay it forward. And I think if we're not conscious of that, then it's easy to forget because we're just kind of tied up in our own individual life. There's a lot going on with the world, with ourselves, that I think it's just nice to take some space to reflect. It's really beautiful. Let's wrap up with some questions.
Sure. The second to last question is, what does an empowered Yumin Wong look like and feel like?
Oh, gosh. Can I say that she is who she is now? I feel empowered.
Yes, absolutely.
I feel empowered. I have, so many things that I can do to, like we said, like learn and grow. And I have a very supportive family, and I couldn't ask for more, honestly. Like, I think I feel really, no one's there to stop me except myself. So like, and Yumin Wong is not stopping herself. Okay. We got to go.
Yes. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And finally, what do you know for sure?
What do I know for sure? I know my due date is on October 10th.
Yeah.
And a baby is coming.
Yes. I love that.
Those are very real, very important things.
And,
yes.
Just even meeting your little son in the park a couple months ago in the beginning of summer, and just noticing how you were kind of interacting with him. I'm really excited, not only for your family, but the people you're going to touch at your work and when you move to Singapore, because you're a powerhouse of a leader and a person. And I'm just so grateful that we got to spend time together.
Equipped with what you will know, going back to that idea. I love the bet that it sounds like you're making on your own future learning. So cool, Yumin. So cool.
Yes, we got to bet on ourselves, man.
Yes,
absolutely.
To betting on ourselves. Here we go. Our invisible cheers. With our water. Here you go.
Yes.
I love it. Here. Hey, thank you so much, Yumin.
Thank you so much.
This podcast is the work of Lightward, our company, named for that toward the light direction which informs every single thing that we do, including money. Which means, like everything else, the way we earn revenue is not based on industry norms. It's based on what feels deeply right and aligned by passing through the door that feels like it has more behind it, not less. And the way we keep this podcast going is all Lightward. It's pay what feels good. It's an exchange of value between you and us. We're keeping conventional podcast advertising totally out of this. And here's how Pay What Feels Good works. We give you this episode because it feels good to do so. And you consider, honestly, what number of dollars this episode is genuinely worth to you. I do not care if that's $3, $1,000, or literally $0 and a heart emoji, as long as that trade genuinely makes your day better. And the energy there is the entire point. That is what we're building our business on. No advertisers, no selling your attention, just you and us, trading value in a way that builds us both up. So whatever the number, when you're done listening, head to empoweredhumanacademy.com and hit the Pay What Feels Good button. We use this policy across all of our company's work, and I'm really excited to bring it here to the world of podcasts. This is us voting for the world that we want to see. Thank you for being here.